Welcome, everyone. You're here for another deep dive. We take really interesting source material and explore it together.
That's right.
And today, we are going deep, really deep, into session 35 of the Law of One.
A fascinating one.
Definitely. Think of this as, well, a chance to get some profound insights. We're looking at spiritual growth, but through the lives of some very well-known historical figures.
It's a unique perspective using the law of one lens on history.
Exactly. You've got the source, session 35. Our mission, really, is to pull out those key nuggets, the surprising bits, without, getting totally lost in the weeds.
Which can happen with this material. It's dense.
It is. It's rich, sometimes complex stuff.
Uh-huh.
But think of us as your guides today. We'll navigate it together.
Absolutely. And session 35 is, well, it's compelling because it moves from these big concepts to very specific examples.
Yeah, it focuses on how that catalyst of the illusion.
Mm-hmm. The challenges, the growth opportunities.
Right. How that actually plays out in the lives of people who, really shaped our world.
And what grabs me straight away is the intention behind that first question in the session.
Oh, yeah, the questioner jumps right in. They want to understand how this catalyst creates spiritual growth.
And their method is interesting. Look at the effect on the rays, the energy centers.
Which we talked about before.
Exactly. But look at them in specific people, starting with Franklin D. Roosevelt, his impactful life.
And Ra, right off the bat, offers this really important perspective, doesn't
Yes,
it?
they do. It's a key caveat. Like, okay, we're talking specifics, but don't forget the bigger picture.
The universal principles.
Precisely. Ra says, the great design of experience is much the same for each entity. It's a good reminder. The details change, but the underlying process.
It's pretty similar for all of us, yeah.
And they also, wisely, I think, warn about, potential distortions in how we understand history.
Especially with figures who were around relatively recently. It's like, here's what we see, but the picture might not be totally complete.
Good point. With that sort of disclaimer, they then go into FDR's development.
Okay, let's get into that. Ra mentions his rapid movement through the lower rays, red, orange, yellow, green.
And activating the Blu-ray pretty early on.
Yeah, that Blu-ray energy center. What do you make of that quick progression?
Well, Rao gives a few reasons. One is previous achievements, so suggests stuff carried over from past lives. Maturity.
Right, not starting from scratch.
But then his early life was relatively comfortable, less turbulence maybe, which could help align those basic energies.
A smoother start, perhaps.
And importantly, Ra highlights his strong desire to progress. That inner drive, it's always a big factor, isn't it?
Definitely, a strong foundation and the will to build on it. So it suggests that getting those core areas solid really helps when engaging with, higher spiritual stuff.
Provided that drive is there, yes. It seems crucial.
Then Rob brings up his marriage, says he mated with an entity whose Blu-ray vibrations were of a strength more than equal to its own.
Which provided sustained catalyst, especially for that Blu-ray communication truth.
So his wife, Eleanor, was a major spiritual influence, particularly in that area.
That's exactly what Ron implies. They even call her his teacher.
Wow.
And emphasize her strong Blu-ray, how it was an ongoing catalyst, not just for him personally, but in a more universal expression.
That makes sense when you think about her work, her public speaking advocacy.
Fits perfectly with a strong, active Blu-ray. Human rights, social causes. Yeah.
Okay, now here's where it gets, I think, really insightful. Ra mentions Franklin had trouble with continued green ray activity.
The heart center. Love, understanding.
Right, and it was because of excessive energy put into the activities regarding other selves and the distortion towards acquiring power.
So the ambition, the drive for leadership.
Actually blocked his heart chakra development. Temporarily, anyway.
That's what it sounds like. Too much focus on orange personal power and yellow intellect, social standing. It overshadowed the green.
An imbalance.
And Ross suggests this imbalance actually contributed to the physical limitation he later faced. Polio.
Ah, okay. But notice how Ra reframes that challenge. It's not just a negative thing.
No, not at all. They say it opened once again the opportunity for concentration upon the more, shall we say, universal or idealistic aspects of power.
The non-abusive use of power.
Exactly. So the physical limitation acted like a course correction, a catalyst to refocus his energy.
Towards more altruistic goals. That's a powerful illustration, isn't it?
Yeah.
How something seemingly awful can redirect you.
It really is. Ra even says that around the start of WWII, his positive polarity had dipped because of that earlier imbalance.
But he regained it.
He regained it, yeah. through the catalytic effects of a painful limitation. Ra clarifies he wasn't inherently warlike.
No, he vibrated in green ray, worked with blue, even during the conflict.
Mm-hmm. And they circle back to his wife, the teacher.
Her role as a Blu-ray activator for him, and, like you said, universally.
But there's that interesting nuance Ra adds, something for us to really chew on.
You mean about the karma?
Yeah. Ra says she polarized continuously in a positive fashion in the universal sense while developing a pattern of what may be called karma.
And that karma was specifically in the relationship with him, the mate-teacher relationship. Distortions there.
Right. So even being this powerful positive force globally, she still had her own personal relationship challenges generating lessons.
It shows that growth isn't about being perfect everywhere all at once, is it?
Seems not. It's more about the overall direction, the polarity, and learning lessons, often right there in our closest bonds.
Okay, quick shift. The questioner then asks for clarifications on FDR, just confirming things.
Right. First was the teacher, his wife.
And Rassus.
Correct. Simple enough.
Then the second one. Did Franklin himself choose, consciously place that physical limitation on his body?
And Ra's answer is more complex. Partially correct.
Okay, partially correct. Let's unpack that a bit. What does that really mean?
Well, it highlights this interplay, you see, between what the soul plans before coming in and the choices made during life.
Pre-incarnational intention versus free will.
Kind of. Ra says the basic guidelines for the lessons and purposes are set before birth by the whole self, the totality.
So the potential for that kind of limitation was likely part of his plan for growth this time around.
Seems likely, yes. But then Ra adds the crucial part.
Which is?
If Franklin had avoided that excessive enjoyment of or attachment to the competitiveness of his job,
Politics. Power.
right, he might not have actually manifested that specific limitation.
So his choices, his free will in life, directly influenced whether that potential catalyst got activated.
Exactly. The desire to serve and grow was also strong in his programming, Ra notes.
But when the focus shifted too much towards love of power,
And away from service and growth opportunities, that's when the limiting factor kicked in, like the system nudging him back on track.
towards service, towards universal contribution. Wow. That really speaks to personal responsibility, doesn't it? And these sort of self-correcting spiritual mechanisms.
Absolutely. A very powerful insight into how challenges can serve our path.
Okay, now the questioner makes a big shift. A huge shift, really, to Adolf Hitler.
A vastly different energy.
Totally. They ask for a similar analysis, building on previous mentions, and Ra's immediate response is telling.
Yes, they mention an intense amount of confusion, both within Hitler's life patterns and even just in talking about him.
That signals a really distorted, difficult energy complex right away.
Definitely. And what's really significant here, I think, for understanding, is the concept Ra brings up.
Which is
Trying to activate the highest rays of energy while lacking the green ray key.
accessing higher stuff without the heart center foundation.
Exactly. And the consequence, Ra says it canceled itself out as far as polarization either towards positive or negative.
So without that developed integrated heart chakra, the green ray, love, understanding, any attempt to reach higher just fizzles, becomes ineffective.
Or worse, leads to stagnation. It really underscores how vital compassion and understanding are as a base for any real spiritual progress.
It seems absolutely fundamental.
And Ra goes further. While Hitler was basically negative in his orientation,
Service to self-path.
right, but his deep internal confusion led to a personality disintegration, made his mind-body-spirit complex unharvestable and much in need of healing.
So unlike FDR, where challenges led to growth, here the fragmentation prevented any coherent polarization, even negative.
That's the picture Ra paints. Total contrast.
Rod does outline his negative pattern, though, believing in an elite and an enslaved group.
A clear, extreme service to self structure, yes.
But then, apparently, he drifted into a twilight world where dream took the place of events.
Lost touch with reality. And ultimately, Ra says, he failed to serve the Creator in a harvestable way, even on his chosen negative path.
So even for negative polarity, you need some conscious intent, some coherence. His delusion prevented even that.
It seems so. Ra connects it directly to insanity, from trying to polarize too quickly without an integrated self.
Without knowing the self.
Exactly. It reinforces all that earlier advice about patience, caution, knowing yourself first. Hitler becomes this stark warning.
A really powerful, sobering example of trying to bypass the foundational work, especially the heart.
Absolutely. The green ray is key.
Then the questioner asks about his subordinates. Did any of them manage to polarize negatively enough to be harvestable?
And Ray's answer is quite chilling. Only two potentials mentioned, still in incarnation at that time.
Herman, Goring, presumably,
Seems likely.
and Himmler.
Just those two. It really highlights how difficult, maybe rare, successful negative polarization actually is, even in that environment.
Yeah, it suggests maybe a certain level of focused will and intention is needed, even for service to self-harvestability. It's not automatic.
Okay, then a graceful transition in the questions. Moving to Abraham Lincoln.
Who the questioner calls a rather unique case.
They ask about his orientation and this possibility of a fourth density being using his body.
And when this might have happened in relation to historical events.
Ray confirms, yeah, that information is available. It can be shared.
And notice the questioner pauses, asks if it would be valuable, showing the discernment Ray often encourages. Right. They ask directly, what was the motivation for this fourth density being using Lincoln's body then?
And Ra gives a heads up, notes the instrument's energy is low. This will be the last full answer for the session.
Setting expectations.
And what follows is, well, pretty remarkable.
Totally. Ra describes Lincoln as dealing with immense pain, physical, mental, spiritual, extreme difficulty and weariness.
But importantly, no self-destructive tendency, despite the hardship.
Then, in 1853, he's contacted in his sleep.
By a fourth density being.
And what was this being's concern?
It was about the battle between the forces of light and the forces of darkness, a battle ongoing in their density, fourth density.
So suggesting an interdimensional aspect to the struggles happening here on Earth at that time.
Seems so. Fascinating, isn't it?
And Lincoln's reaction, how did he respond?
He accepted the honor duty, as Ra puts it, of completing Abraham's karmic patterns.
Letting this other being step in to try and achieve what Lincoln himself wanted but felt unable to do?
Exactly. A profound act of service, really, shows his positive orientation.
So an exchange was made.
Yes. Abraham was taken to a plane of suspension, sort of like Ra's own situation with their instrument, Carla, outside the normal cycle.
Allowing the fourth density being to use Lincoln's body.
Right. And Ra stresses the timing. Critical planetary energies, the idea of freedom was gaining ground globally.
A key concept for humanity.
But it was under threat. The belief in and practice of enslavement was rising.
Which Ra calls a serious negative concept.
And this fourth density being saw this as a direct danger to freedom's expansion, a crucial point in the battle for the light.
So that being intervened to try and heal that rupture in the concept of freedom.
That was the motivation, yes. It's a very different way of looking at the Civil War era, isn't it? Influences beyond just the physical.
Absolutely. And Ra is clear, this didn't create bad karma for the being.
Because of detachment from the outcome and the core attitude, service to others, especially the oppressed, the enslaved.
But there was a slight impact on Lincoln's overall energy.
A slight lessening of polarity, yes. From the sheer weight of negative thought forms generated by the war's trauma and suffering.
A reminder of the energetic cost of conflict.
Then Ra checks in, was that the information needed, or is more detail required?
And the questioner, being considerate of the instrument.
Carl's energy level.
Right, says they'll hold further questions for the next session, about 4 days later.
They ask briefly about Carla's comfort, the contact quality.
And Ra reassures all is well, before giving that final sign-off.
Go forth, therefore rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one Creator, Adonai.
A really powerful end to a session packed with just incredible insights.
Truly profound. Analyzing how these big spiritual principles actually manifest in individual lives that shaped our world.
Absolutely. This deep dive, session 35.
Wow.
So much to think about. We saw that catalyst at work in FDR, Hitler, Lincoln.
Each one showing different facets of growth, polarity, or
stagnation in Hitler's tragic case.
Yeah. And the complexities of positive and negative paths. And that idea of higher density intervention.
It's mind-bending stuff. We really hope you found this exploration, as insightful and engaging and ultimately positive as we did.
It's certainly given me a lot to ponder.
Me too. And maybe something for you listening to ponder as well. How might that catalyst of the illusion be working in your life right now? Perhaps in ways you haven't quite seen yet.
A good question to sit with.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
Namaste.
Namaste. I am you and you are me. We look forward to our next exploration together.